What's going on, guys? Hey, welcome back to season 2 of the L3 Perspective.
You know, life, love, and leadership is definitely the lens through which I see the world. So I am very grateful to be in an environment with like-minded individuals that are speaking the same language, that are talking the same talk.
What I was telling G is I want to be a master of it, though. I want to study this art of speaking because, yeah, I'm good at it, but I want to be a master of it.
There's a difference between when you're good at something and great at something.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, love, share. These conversations are the ones that really affect everyday life for all of us. And ultimately, we do this for you to begin with. Keep listening. We appreciate y'all who are rocking with us into season 2. Because like I said, we do it for y'all.
Season 2, welcome back to the L3 Perspective. My name is Glenn Davis. As you know, I'm sitting here with my co-host, Cameron Macias.
Coach Cam.
Yes.
I haven't done that in a while.
I know, it's been a while.
It's been a minute. I feel like we're back at it, baby.
Yes. The L3 Perspective, as you know, platform where we talk about life, love, leadership. Today's episode, we're actually going to hone in more specifically on leadership. Seems to be a consistent topic over the last, well, always, but it seems to be a consistent topic recently. But look forward to talking about leadership on self and leading others.
Yep.
Anyway, Cam, I'm going to toss it to you and then we can dive into it.
Yeah, buddy. So, as we've talked about in the past, like, love, share, subscribe. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Because at the end of the day, we do it for you guys. And if we don't know what you enjoy, there's really no way for us to adjust and pivot so that you are continuing to enjoy the show. Recently, we had a huge influx of people who are watching, and we appreciate you for sure for tuning into us because we know there are plenty of other shows out there. So life, love, and leadership, though, as you know, we're passionate about. But today, we're going to talk about leadership. And so the reason why... So G asked me last night, said, what do we want to talk about?
Yeah.
Because we wanted one for like just me and him because it's been a while. Guests have been amazing, but as we know, you guys like to hear us talk too. And so leadership came to mind just because a lot of the circles we're running in right now. I mean, granted, obviously we're in leadership development, business optimization, but like just the personal conversations too. I spoke to a mutual friend of ours the other day, and we just talked about being a man and the leadership that comes with that as well. You know, leadership of self, leadership of your family, you know, leadership of your workspace, your environment in general. I feel like nowadays it's becoming, in my personal opinion, it's becoming harder and harder for a man to feel as though he can lead in these spaces. It doesn't have to become like a whole man thing, but that's just something I've noticed, especially as a father of 5 or 6, 5 in my house, 2 boys, 3 girls. I have to be kind of a dual example. One to my girls, hey, this is how a man should act to you and treat you and respect you. At the same time, vice versa. This is how you should also in turn respect and treat a man. My sons are kind of the same thing. And so that's why I chose that topic today.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, the timing is always on point whenever we come up with the topic to discuss. It's always relevant to the seasons. You know, I have always been a big fan of leadership development. And I think that out of all the seasons of me leading people, leading teams, leading organizations or businesses, this is probably what I feel is the most important for that same reason. And you talking about, you know, leading the household, right? And I think that the conversations that I'm having more with the kids based around leadership and your impact on people is relevant.
Yeah.
And equally important as well. So.
And I think it's like, so our mutual friend who I was talking to, just Billy Rowe.
Okay.
Men's Circle. Check him out. firstrow.com. Great friend. We had a very good conversation as far as where we were talking about where mentally a lot of men are when it comes to leading their house. And you know, I was in a very unleadership feeling as though I had the control of that space a few years ago. Although I was, running and gunning from the outside perspective, people were like, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that. At the end of the day, I wasn't leading in the way that I could. And it was an environment thing. It was a leadership on my part as far as what active steps was I taking to be able to do it. But it was also an accountability and responsibility piece. And I think that's like what is missed out on, right? Is it's not just accountability for like, oh, it's your position to like lead. There's a lot of other things that you have to be accountable for. Yeah. Especially when you're leading from that kind of masculine role is like, because you can't just do whatever you want because you're a man. And I think there's like those messages get misconstrued, right? Jordan Peterson is? Yeah. Okay. So I watched so been a while since I watched the podcast, but I kept seeing these clips of him on the Sean Ryan show. And on the Sean Ryan show, he 2-hour interview. So I like listened to it while I was mowing the lawn. It was perfect. But he talks a lot about like those, like that mismanagement of the male image and the leadership image, right? And one of the things he talked about, which I related to, was the story of Beauty and the Beast. Okay. So he's like, hey, the villagers are in essence like cowards, right? So that's why like Belle is like, man, I don't want a villager. Gaston is like this supposedly masculine figure, but he's a complete narcissist, right? And so it can be easy to like fall into that realm. But then you have the Beast, who is like this monster, but he's a tameable monster or a tameable beast to keep the other beasts at bay. And so they talked about this fine line where for women, or he was talking about this fine line where women had to find a man who was a beast enough to keep other beasts at bay, but giving enough to be tameable. Giving enough to give himself to the woman. Right. And men also then have to also tote that line, right? Like, I got to be enough of a beast where like people don't want to, interfere with what I have going on, but like, don't be an asshole. Yeah. And I thought that was a very interesting way to put it. And it made a lot of sense, right? He took a Disney movie and broke down kind of like the 3 different somewhat facets that you can fall into when it comes to where you stand in leadership nowadays.
Yeah. It's, I think people don't really understand the significant impact of that role, right? When it comes to, we'll stick with leading self, right? Before even going into leading others. And we've talked about this a little bit on previous episodes, as far as like, sitting with yourself, finding time to date yourself and all that. And I think that especially with so much going on in the world now, it's even more important to do that, right? To really like be intentional with leading yourself. Like, what does that mean? Whether, self-assessments or being self-aware. Yeah. I think that that is probably something that I've been more intentional with right now, right? Just that self-awareness. Like, I always have known what my strengths and weaknesses were when coming to leading myself and leading people. But I think it's even more being more intentional now with it, right? Yeah. And more importantly, the value, right? Understanding the value that you bring to self. Yeah. And I think that does require for you to actually like pause, take a moment and actually be present with yourself, right? Yeah. Because, it's hard to even impact or inspire someone when you don't know your strengths and weaknesses or the values that that hold true to you. Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
No, I mean, and that's like, I fall back a lot on that like accountability piece. Yeah. Because I think too many times, like, there's like all these excuses for like why we're doing things or not doing them. Yeah. And it's like you said, that sit with yourself. Right. And like kind of understand, right? Like, it was funny yesterday, I was sitting on hold with the IRS and I was telling Net, I said, I really don't do well when I'm forced to sit still. And she was like, maybe that's something you need to work on. And I was like, Nope. Maybe that's something the world needs to get faster about. Well, because as most people, I'm a mover. I gotta move. So like, when I'm forced to sit in a place and I have no control of the movement at all, it's like I'm just sitting here waiting for someone to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And I'm limited because like I can't do something because I gotta listen for the phone or I gotta be active, whatever. That like kills me. Yeah. And so, but don't get me wrong, there are times where like I don't want to do anything. But it's on my terms, right? And I think that's where that it's like to control what you can control. Yeah. And it's understanding that if you don't like to not have control, it's hard out there. So
Nat actually made a good point though, right? Because to her point and to what I was saying as far as the self-awareness, right? You know that you don't like to be still. Yeah. Right. And so I believe in conversing with Nat, I believe that she's not just saying, well, learn how to sit still. Right. Yeah. And so, and it's not even specifically for you, but for folks who are like, well, the world just has to deal with it. Yeah. Right. Unfortunately, the world doesn't revolve like that. However,
those who conform to the world, I didn't expect the world to conform to them.
So, and that awareness piece of it is now, okay, I understand that I like the move. How can I still make this beneficial, even though I'm on hold? I mean, however the example, right? Yeah. Even though I'm on hold, how can I make this? How can it still be me, right? How can I still adjust to the situation? Yeah. Right. Obviously, in the military, we learn to pivot and move, adjust, be flexible. So and I think sometimes we forget that. That in that space.
Well, so I will say, so the reason why, because at the end of the day, I was like, this was the fourth time I was on hold with the IRS yesterday.
Gotcha. So this is where patience.
This is patience. This is more like I've wasted half my day dealing with this. Because what I will say is that I think on hold number 2 of the day, Net was like sending me some house stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm already sitting here on hold. She sent me some houses to look at on Zillow. Why don't I also in turn go look at some houses? And so it was fun. I started sending her stuff. She's like, well, look at you. And I was like, I'm on hold. Like I got to do something except just sit here in this empty house listening to wind. So that being said, I was like, all right. But yeah, at this point, the fourth one, I was just like, I'm dying here.
So I want to bring something up. I was sitting last night.
Oh, gee, you got his book.
Regarding the leadership on self, and I wanted to kind of bring this up. Obviously, leadership, like fundamentally, it's about guiding self, guiding people, inspiring self, inspiring people, and empowering self and empowering people. Yep. Right. And so to obviously come together to achieve a common goal. Right. Yeah. So kind of fundamental leadership 101 for those that don't know how to effectively lead. Yeah. Which is a conversation within itself. However, self-leadership, right? We were talking about self-awareness. Something else that I wanted to kind of bring up and also hear your perspective on it. Goal setting. Whenever I think about goal setting, I've more so tied into system setting. Because a lot of us do create goals, come up with goals, write down goals, but we lack the systems, right? In place. Time management, right? This is something that I think that you're really skilled at in managing your time. And then 2 more, continuous learning and then resilience. So I would like to hear your thoughts when it comes to leading self. Why is that important in that framework to be able to now transition into leading people?
So I feel like there's it's very easy to tell other people what to do instead of following your own advice, right? And I always am interested to see the people who are able to not only teach but do. Because you hear that that shitty phrase, if you can't do, you teach, right? And I hate that because there are a lot of great people who can do and then teach how they do it. Yeah. As far as leading self, you have to be cognizant. You have to have sat with yourself, faced kind of those things in your closet, right? Of what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, to understand how to move past it. And so one same podcast is he was talking about PTSD. And one of the show hosts is a prior Navy SEAL Team 6 guy.
Okay.
And he said, hey, why? And, obviously Jordan Peterson's a psychologist. So he said, hey, why does every time people talk about PTSD, they talk about childhood? He's like, this happened because I was in war, not because of what happened when I was a child. And Jordan Peterson explained, he said, PTSD is not a one event thing. It is a culmination of things that have happened to you your entire life that your body has attached anxiety to. And unfortunately, there is one event normally that then triggers all those events that have caused you anxiety for throughout your life. And so the reason they start at childhood is because you haven't dealt with things that maybe you didn't even understand then. So you have to go back to go forward. Right. Because ultimately what PTSD is, it's a opening of your closet through a traumatic event of all the demons that you may have not dealt with previously and that have now added to the spur of it. Right.
Yeah.
And so when you're leading other people, I feel like you can't be the type of person where you're saying all these things, but then you're going home and you're not living in that purpose whatsoever. Right. Yeah. It makes you false. They may think you're real in the moment, but I feel like it makes you mentally worse because you're a false, and it just starts this repetitive cycle.
Yeah. No, it's funny you mentioned that, because as you were talking about that, it took me back to two things. Now having my mom out here and having deeper conversations, I'm now able to connect certain traumas or certain things to childhood trauma, which is interesting because now it's forcing me to face and have those conversations with myself. But even more importantly, to share with my kids on, hey, not only am I going to apologize, but this is why, or I'm learning this is why I respond this way, or I say this, or it's et cetera.
Yeah.
And the other piece of what stood out on the other side of my brain when you were talking was, I often, and I remember in the military, I would do this, but most times when I write the word leadership down, I write LEAD in capital letters, right?
Okay.
Even when I used to do email blogs, I used to send out these. Actually, I still kind of do it to a different organization, but they're called the Morning Nuggets. Yeah, the Morning Nuggets. And so, but I think people, and one of the reasons why I do that is because there is a distinct difference in leadership and effective leadership. And I think that so many people who, put on this robe of leadership, and not robe, right?
Yeah.
They put on this cloth of
Harry Potter's cloak.
Yeah. Of being a leader versus being an effective leader. And I bring up those things from the self-awareness, goal setting, system setting, time management, continuous learning, and resilience, because they are essential pieces to learn about and understand, so you can lead self better to be able to lead people better. And I wanted to highlight that, man, because those are main things. But anyway, the LEAD in capital letters is just a reminder to myself is that this is never just a role.
Yeah.
Right. Because your words will impact, and not only impact people, but they could literally shift the direction or course of that one individual's life.
Yep.
And to me, when I started really falling in love with leadership development, I took ownership of that concept right there.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm so passionate about leading people and pouring into people, and not even just motivating or inspiring, but really helping them to find their destination, right? Or even just kind of get on that road. So I wanted to highlight that.
Bet. All right. Well, as we wrap up, yep. This is a little nugget. Because there's a little nugget. All right. Consider a little nugget. But as we wrap up, this is a conversation we will continue, obviously. Yes. This is just a little unpack. So honestly, this may be leadership volume 1.
Yeah.
And then we continue this conversation to keep moving. Because I'm sure at this point people are like, wait a minute, there's still 2 more things to talk about.
Yeah.
So maybe
we should do a part two.
We'll do that. We're gonna do part 2s, 3s.
Yeah.
But that being said, why don't you lead us out?
Yes. So I will say this first and foremost. To our listeners, our viewers, thank you for your continuous support. Thank you for the feedback as we continue to sharpen our skills and effectively lead our team on this podcast and in our business. And so with that being said, regarding leadership, take ownership of that role, of that responsibility, because again, you just never know how you could impact that individual, right? Take the time to really, really, really lead self, right? So become more self-aware, the continuous learning. I think that is very important in order for you to be able to pour into someone else. Make sure that you're constantly chasing the next best version of yourself. With that all being said, we appreciate you guys. Cam, always a great conversation.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We'll see y'all later.
What's going on, guys? Hey, welcome back to season 2 of the L3 Perspective.
And I was like, your teacher's there to teach you algebra and math. My job is to teach you how to survive and to help guide you as much as I can.
I was thinking about one of the surveys. 2 out of the 3 of our topics that really stood out regarding men in our viewpoint was love and leadership. This is the L3 Perspective where we talk life, love, and leadership. We really dove into the piece of life and leadership.
Like, love, share. These conversations are the ones that really affect everyday life for all of us. And ultimately, we do this for you to begin with. Keep listening. We appreciate y'all who are rocking with us into season 2. Because like I said, we do it for y'all.
Yes.